Welcome to the Minnesota Liberty Network podcast, your source for all things freedom, individual rights, and the search for liberty in the land of 10,000 lakes. Recording from the Main Street Studios in District 58 in the beautiful city of Lonsdale. I am producer Matt V, and I bring to you Senator Bill Liskey and Representative Drew Roach. They will bring you news from the legislature and in their district, along with great guests. All right, so let's get to it.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Bill.
How's it going today?
Doing great. Looks like we're down a guy, huh?
Yeah, you know, that intro's got Drew Roach, but he's off enjoying life. He's not going to make it today. That's okay, because he didn't get to make it to the event yesterday either that I was at.
Yeah, so could you tell us about this event that you went to?
Yeah, so Senator Nathan Wiesenberg, good friend of mine, very good friend of mine, had a fundraiser this weekend, and we drove up to Little Falls to where his the ball, what is it, the Little Falls Ball, something like that. It's a ballroom there, and he was having a fundraiser, and it was specifically about eating beaver. Let's show off the shirt that I got. Let's show it off. Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Shirt. Yeah. Well, it says something pretty funny on it, though.
Can you read it for me?
Yeah, it says, "Outlaw. When eating beaver is outlawed, only outlaws will eat beaver."
Love it.
And so, you know, it seems funny, but state of Minnesota just in the last session outlawed eating beaver, nuisance beaver.
Yes, beavers were in the news.
Yeah, and it's illegal to eat beaver in the state of Minnesota. But we're outlaws, so we don't really care. We ate beaver.
Some game warden didn't show up at your door and
take
somebody away.
So, you know, the law is very weird. The law was written that you can't eat nuisance beaver. Well, depending on how you define beaver, I guess, it depends on whether it's a nuisance or not a nuisance. And so if it's not a nuisance, if it's trapped, not nuisance, then it's legal to eat it. But if it's trapped and it's a nuisance beaver, then it's illegal to eat it. Sounds pretty subjective to me.
It does. So you can just say that it's a nuisance and eat it.
Yeah, I mean, some beavers are nuisances and some beavers aren't.
Okay. So,
I mean, I guess. So we ate beaver yesterday. It was interesting. It's the second time I've had beaver. The last time I had it was more like a shredded beef with barbecue sauce. This time it was like an olive sauce. Not my favorite, but it was edible. Tastes a lot like beef.
With an olive sauce, you said?
Yeah,
olive gravy.
Sauce. Yeah, like an olive gravy.
Give it a little bit of moisture.
Yeah. You know, perfect tendered meat. It was, you know, smoked. I think he said he pan seared it, and then he roasted it in the oven for about 5 hours.
Gotcha.
So
get it good and tender.
I know that's up your alley. You like smoked meats, and you like working with meat.
I do. Brisket, pulled pork, ribs.
Yeah. Your pulled pork was great, by the way. Oh, thanks for bringing it.
You did taste it?
Yes, I ate all. My daughter ate most of it.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I got a couple sandwiches. She ate most of it. So, you know, Nate was gracious enough to have us over. We got to hang out with him, so it was a good weekend.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hopefully you raised a little bit of money.
I think he raised quite a bit of money. So I want to say thank you to everybody that showed up to help him out, because running for office is not free.
No.
It costs money to run. Putting up signs, putting out literature, doing calls, texts, all that stuff costs money.
Yeah, it sure does.
So, and you know, I always say every person that helps us makes it easier for us to get the message out. So we greatly appreciate that.
Absolutely. All righty. Want to go into a question?
Yeah, why not? I know we got some questions texted in here this afternoon, so I wouldn't mind answering a few of those for you.
Well, constituent asks, what does the deficit mean for taxpayers?
All right, so that's a great question.
That is a great question.
You know, the Democrats, as much as they would love to tell us that there is a stable budget, there is not a stable budget. We're looking at a $6 billion deficit. It went from $5.1 billion in November to almost $6, so $5.8 billion here in the February forecast. The reason that they call it stable is because we still have a very low surplus at the moment, meaning that, you know, there is some money left in the tax bank. And so they're calling it stable because for at least this biennium, we still have more money than we technically need. Now, if we were not to spend that at all, it goes into the 2026 and 2027, 2027 and 2028 years. If we get to that point, I can tell you right now, we will be in an even bigger deficit if we spend that surplus that we have.
Didn't we have quite a large surplus at one time?
We had
Supposedly.
almost a $21 billion surplus if you didn't adjust it for inflation. See, that was my favorite. See, we started to hide stuff behind adjustments for inflation. Makes us look better. So
Not so much.
no, not at all. So we had nearly $21 billion in the bank when I started in 2023. Then we adjusted everything, all the descriptions for inflation. So that brought it down to about a $17 to $18 billion surplus still. So we lost $3 billion in the span of 2 minutes when we decided to readjust that description. The reality is we didn't lose it. We just how the money is assessed. That's all.
It's all on how you count it, right?
Right. So back to the original question. So we've described the situation we're in, but let's talk about what it means for the taxpayers. The governor's got a couple of different proposals. And, with the trifecta, when we had the trifecta, what the governor said is what went. So if he decided he wanted to do something, we pretty much did it. The only time that didn't happen is if some of my colleagues disagreed on some of the language. But overall, we generally stuck to his budget. So this year, he's proposing that we pass those wonderful ramifications of a deficit onto counties. So to answer the constituent's question, her name was Jamie. Jamie is the one who texted it in. And to answer Jamie's question, so how they plan on getting around it, what it means for taxpayers. They're going to just pass the buck. We're going to pass it on to the counties through the HHS or the Department of Human Services MDH costs. So counties right now have to pay for a lot of mandated coverage, a lot of mandated costs of special education, long-term care, all these things that they offer through the counties. We're going to pass those costs on to the counties. And I talked to a couple different counties. I didn't get a chance to talk to Dakota County yet about it, but I talked to Goodhue, Rice, and Scott County about it. And every single one of them told me that with those proposed plans of passing on the budget errors, I like to call them mistakes. Maybe they should have listened to us for the last 2 years when we said, hey, this is a bad idea. When we pass those mistakes onto the counties to pay for, it's going to raise your property tax roughly 10 to 12%.
Wow.
So
that's quite a hefty increase.
There's your answer, Jamie, is that it will cost roughly 10 to 12%. And it'll be through your property tax. Now, see, here's where I have an issue with that. It's funny because we always hear the Democrats talking about charging, the higher earners, the 1%ers, more taxes. But the reality of the situation is if we pass our tax burden onto the property taxes, everybody pays equally.
Yeah.
It's not based off of your income. It's
all
based
spread
off
around,
your properties.
Right?
Yeah. And so the poorest of the poor individuals will now have to pay through massive rent increases because, of course, the building costs are going to go up for the places that they rent. And then those of us that just own a house that are in the middle, now we're going to be paying because we have to pay for our house versus paying pay for it through our house versus paying for it with our income tax. Income tax is definitely significantly more controlled, and it's based off your income.
So if your taxes are $2,500 a month, it's another $250 a year.
Correct.
Well, that's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money. So, I always say if you only have $250 or $2,500 for property tax, you're doing okay.
You're doing pretty good.
Yeah. I down here in Lonsdale, we're running right around $5,000 for our house. It's a pretty hefty property tax, and so we're looking at a possible increase of over $500. That's pretty significant.
It is.
Spread that out across the next, however many years, and that just gets a little too stressful. So hopefully that answers the question how the taxpayers are going to deal with this budget deficit.
It was a great question. Very good question. Well, they have another question as well. Will Medicare be impacted by the cuts?
Okay, so Shirley texted this in. She lives here in Lonsdale, and she's worried about Medicare, and this is more of a federal government question, so we don't normally sway into the federal government too much, but I can speak to it a little bit because I'm on the Health and Human Services Committee, and where the federal government deficits come in, that leads to where the state has to take over and try and help. Based on everything that I've seen, whilst they're talking about an $880 billion cut to DHS at the federal level, they have not indicated where those cuts are coming from. And so we need to take it with a grain of salt, be more patient, Some of those changes will be important and have impact, and they may directly impact how quickly we get Medicare payments, how those Medicare payments are divvied out. But at the end of the day, at the current moment, as a provider and as a person on the state government that deals with health and human services insurance type stuff, I have yet to see anything indicating that it's going to change. So yes, there will probably be some changes. Yes, there will be some growing pains as we make these cuts, but also in the future, it would mean that we would have a positive impact, not a negative impact on our other sides of government costs. So hopefully our income tax federally would drop to make up for those cuts. So
that's a great question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you want to move on to a couple of videos here we have?
Well, let's talk about something else that happened in the Senate first.
Sure.
You probably heard about it on the news this week. I thought this session was going to be tough, but I thought the session was going to be pretty boring going into it. I thought, hey, we're gonna actually have to work together. We're gonna have to be bipartisan. We're gonna just get in there. We're gonna do the work, and we're gonna move on. Well, then you fast forward to Senator Mitchell. At the beginning of session, Senator Mitchell decided to delay her court case. She decided not to go to court, and so that meant that after the special election for Senator Dietzich, who unfortunately passed away due to ovarian cancer, when we filled that seat, we'd still be 34-33. So Senator Mitchell has yet to resign. I think she should. She's definitely implicated for a pretty serious crime. It's a first-degree burglary. It's a violent crime. Well, then we fast forward to this last Monday, Matt, and it was a pretty terrible Monday. Monday was fine. Monday, I went through it thinking, okay, this is just the beginning of another week. Tuesday morning hits, and I'm driving into the Capitol. I have to be there at 8:30 for committee. So I'm walking into Health and Human Services Committee, and on my phone I get an email saying, "Emergency caucus 10:45. All members, no staff."
Oh wow,
yeah, pretty strange. Not too often do we get these emails talking about emergency caucus meetings for the Senate. It's pretty weird. I immediately knew somebody was in trouble. I knew somebody messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know who. Hadn't heard anything yet. Just found out through this email that there was something going on. And now we all know what it was. Senator Eichhorn made some really poor choices. Absolutely terrible. Decided that he was more important than his family. He decided he was more important than the state of Minnesota. And had no cares for other people.
It's just something that I can't even fathom.
Yeah, I never understand. Everybody asks me, well, why do you think, did you see any indicators of it? Do you think he showed any signs of it? And I said, honestly, I would have never guessed. When I heard somebody was in trouble, that was not the first name that came to the list. I thought, okay, maybe somebody was drinking and driving because Monday was St. Patty's Day.
There you go. That's kind of what I thought too.
So when I found out somebody was in trouble, I was like, well, drinking and driving, I can think of a few senators who've enjoyed their beverages before. Not too shocking. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, it ended up being somebody that I didn't expect. So Senator Eichhorn was arrested for soliciting prostitution from a minor. That's what he was arrested for. Terrible situation. Absolutely terrible. Personally, as soon as I heard what was happening, as soon as we got the information of what his charges were, I demanded his resignation. Before I even heard what the full charges were, I was thinking, you need to resign.
Yeah, I did see your post right away. Got out ahead of it.
Time to leave. I don't take any of that stuff lightly. The whole purpose of being a state senator is to represent your entire district. And if you can't even be a good citizen, you shouldn't be representing all of the other good citizens of your district.
Well said.
So something that bothers me with Senator Eichhorn's situation is that it didn't just hurt, it didn't hurt his district either. It hurt his family. I really do feel bad for his wife and for his kids. And so not only did we do that, then we found out that charges were escalated to federal charges.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we immediately were going to expel him. Like we didn't wait. We're not going to hide behind due process like the Democrats do. Due process is not necessary for the Senate. The Senate is held to a higher standard. As an elected official, you have a job to do. And if you can't do that without the distractions of criminal charges, you shouldn't be there.
Agree. I agree with you.
So, you know, I still have choice words for Senator Mitchell. It's her turn. You know, Senator Eichhorn on Thursday morning got a message to Governor Walz and to our leadership teams in the Senate stating that he was going to resign due to personal matters, which we all know what those personal matters are, at least allegedly. And his case will play out in the courts, and it'll be up to them to deal with. It's not our job to deal with that.
When does the special election happen? A couple weeks after?
So that's the hard part. We don't know the answer to that question yet entirely. Governor Walz, it's in his court. So the resignation was accepted Thursday morning. Governor Walz has 5 days to call the writ himself, and if he doesn't, then 20 days will pass, and the special election will be called at the end of the 20 days. So that gives you an answer of where or when it could be called, at which point it needs 28 days minimum between the day the writ is written and the election, because you have 14 days for a primary and then 14 days for the general election. So that's where we're at. We're on the hurry up and wait. I think Governor Walz will probably file a writ on Monday, so tomorrow.
Do you think there'll be a primary? More than one person running?
I have heard of almost, I think we're at six people running on the Republican side. I have not heard who's running on the Democrat side. I don't know. I haven't really paid attention to that. I do know that there's a possibility of 6 people, for sure 3 that have announced publicly, 3 more that are contemplating. So good luck to all of you. I'm looking forward to seeing who decides to run. There are some that I prefer over others, and we'll leave that out of it for now. And because at this point, infighting is a problem. The Republican Party is definitely constantly attacking itself, and I really would like to see us get to the point where the word unity is not overused and actually is meaning what it means. So
gotcha.
That's how we are currently with the Eichhorn stuff, which leads us right into the next section. It's kind of funny because we get a double standard here in the state of Minnesota.
The double standard for sure. When we hit the button,
let's do it. Let's talk about liberal tears.
Perfect. Ready for this one?
Yeah, let's listen to Senator McQuaid. This is her opinion outside the Senate chambers, literally right after we were going to make a motion to expel. This is right after Senator Eichhorn resigned.
I'm Senator Aaron McQuaid. I represent Senate District 56. We are not dispensed with this problem. Mr. Eichhorn was not an anomaly. He is a symptom. As a member of the LGBTQ community, I hear from my Republican colleagues all the time slanderous and baseless claims of accusations of being predators and groomers. But the Republican Party has created a permission structure for Republican leaders to act with sexual predation and be rewarded. In the Republican Party, if you have credible allegations of sexual predation on a child, you get nominated to be the Attorney General. Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, Linda McMahon, Jim Jordan. Mr. Eichhorn is not an anomaly. He is a symptom. It is time for our Republican colleagues to look in the mirror, do some very real work to dismantle the permission structure that gives Republicans the feeling that they can go about doing this vile behavior, to prey on a child, to arrange allegedly to pay for sex with a child, and think you will get away consequence-free. And obviously this was not, or clearly it was allegedly not the first time. Thank you for being here. This is incredibly harrowing, especially for my colleagues who have teenage daughters, especially for anybody who has sent their daughter to this Capitol to advocate, to lobby, to testify. I can't imagine what's going through their minds. And for the community that has been ripped apart, for the family that has been ripped apart, we need our Republican colleagues to take this seriously. We cannot continue in this way. Thank you.
So you are indicting all Republicans for this type of behavior? That seems like a stretch.
Say it again.
It is a stretch.
Yeah.
You're indicting all Republicans for this type of behavior and allowing this type of behavior? I don't understand.
If you go back and listen to things that have been said on the floor about Democrats, about the LGBTQ And so what I am asking today is for Republicans to take very seriously the way in which their leadership has created a permission structure for this type of behavior. Because Mr. Eichhorn has resigned. That one specific person is gone. But this is not the first time things like this have happened in our state or across the country. And so what I'm asking for is a real deep, hard look at the problems that exist at the Republican leadership level that make people feel like this is okay. Because he obviously thought this was okay. He left this building and went over to arrange, allegedly, to have sex with a child. That requires a whole lot more permission than just a random thought on a Monday.
Okay, so let me address that. That's absolutely ridiculous. Senator McQuaid is now calling all Republicans predators, specifically pedophilia.
That's
predators.
Irresponsible, if you ask me.
Well, as the Democrats always say, don't let a good crisis go to waste. Always a good talking point, always a good time to talk about it. I am super annoyed with what she just said. We didn't wait.
I don't blame you.
I didn't hold off. I didn't say there was any permission. Who did he get permission from? What is she talking about? She's saying that there's something about permission. What the heck is that? Never heard of such a thing. He went and he did something on his own, ruining both his family and putting the Senate into disrepute. And yet she's protecting a felon right now, or a possible felon, an alleged felon. She's protecting Senator Mitchell. I heard Senator Murphy talk about how they're two different crimes. Well, yeah, they are two different crimes. One's a sex crime. One's a violent crime. They're both crimes. They're both felonies. What is she talking about?
That's a good question, Bill.
I don't know. I don't get heated too often, Matt. You know me. I'm not normally getting mad. And so the fact that I'm mad about this is absolutely real. Like, I'm not making this up.
What he did was wrong. What she did was wrong.
But now she's implying that somebody like me, who's a sitting state senator, who's a Republican, yes, I have an R next to my name. Yes, I do, because I believe in small government. I believe in less intrusive government, and I believe in conservativeship. I think we should be protecting our taxpayer dollars with the utmost respect for what we use them for. And if we're not going to use them correctly, they should go back to the taxpayers. You know, when I hear her say that this is normal, this is something that the Republican Party has normalized. No, it has not. We are not okay with this. We are the law. We are the party of law and family values. So the fact that one person who makes these choices is now being told that, or we're now being told that this is our normal. No, it's not.
Well, I can appreciate his question to her. So you're saying all Republicans are like this? No.
Right.
And she kind of stopped for a second to think about what to say.
And then she went on and she doubled down.
Exactly.
Yeah, she paused, and then she realized that, hey, this is a good chance for me to, gain brownie points or political points. Mm-hmm. Something that she's really good at is gaining political points. That's all she ever does. It's very frustrating. And you know what? It's not the Republican Party that 2 years ago decided to remove the language that got rid of pedophilia as a protected sexual orientation. You probably don't remember it, but
point. That's a great point.
Back on the Senate floor, we had a huge debate about this. There was a bill that was passed. In fact, our favorite representative, Finke, who we like to talk about on this show somewhat regularly. Unfortunately, Drew's not here to chat about it.
Yeah, he would be going off right now.
He would be going. The thing that is really pathetic is that Representative Finke brought forward a bill that would remove the language from the Human Rights Act that protects sexual orientation, but we had excluded for the last, I think it's from 1990 something. We excluded the language pedophilia, and Representative Finke took that language out. So that tells me who's the party that's supporting this? What's the messaging? Excuse me, what? I voted against that.
Republicans want that in there.
I voted against removing that language. Pedophilia should not be a protected sexual orientation.
No.
But now it is, thanks to the Democrats, the trifecta from last year. And you know what, Senator McQuaid, you were the one on that as well. You were part of that change. You were on the bill. I'm pretty sure your name was on the bill as a co-author. So settle down, because the reality is they're just as bad, if not worse. And, I laugh because former Representative Munson posted on something on Facebook. He talked about Just not that long ago, there was a Democrat who was caught on I-35. There was a truck stop, got caught with a minor doing the same things. So don't tell me that this is just a Republican Party issue. This is a political class issue. And this is why I ran, because I'm not part of the political class and I have no intentions of joining it other than the fact that I am now a sitting state senator. I don't fit in well. I've never fit in well in the political class because I don't think my title gives me anything other than I am now sitting in the room at the table discussing these things. That's the only reason that my title matters, is because it allows me to sit at the table. I'm pretty annoyed. I'm pretty disgusted by what she said. My colleagues are good people. Senator Eichhorn made his poor choices, and he is not a good person. But the rest of my colleagues work hard to try and do the right thing for Minnesotans. And so until you have proof, don't make such allegations, Senator McQuaid. That's absolutely terrible.
Yeah, blanket statements aren't good.
They don't help anything.
No.
You know, it's funny because we constantly get told, I get emails, I get texts, I get random questions on the street when I'm at events, whatever. You know, why is the country coming to such division? Well, it's statements like that. That's why we're getting to such division. You know, I was rated one of the most bipartisan senators in the state of Minnesota for the first 2 years that I was in office. And the reason why is because I don't say stuff like that. I don't talk like that.
Why would you? You wouldn't.
I call out the person, the individual, the person who makes the bad choice. And I called out Senator Eichhorn just as much as I would call out the next person. I don't care which party you're in. If you're making a bad decision, you're making a bad decision. And you deserve to be called out. It's not a political issue. You know, some of my colleagues that I work with that are on the other side of the aisle, that's the number one thing they give me respect for, because I don't care which party you're in. If you're giving a good idea, I'm going to support your good idea. If you're giving a bad idea, I'm not going to support your idea. And that's just the reality of the situation. I don't care which party you're in. I'm here to represent the people of Senate District 58 and help the people of Minnesota. I'm not here for me. I'm not participating for me.
No, you're here for those in the district.
And
absolutely are.
And I take it as an affront to the people of District 58 who now have to deal with the fact that any of you who voted for a Republican, we now have a person just to our north who's calling us a predator. Mm-hmm. And that's not okay.
No.
So, you know, I'm heated. Yeah, I'm mad. I'm mad about the situation. I honestly didn't like what Senator Murphy had to say, but she kept it pretty moderate. She kept it as calm as she could. She said some things that I don't agree with, and she's allowed to say things that I don't agree with. That's totally normal. It's abnormal for me to agree with anyone 100% of the time. If that's the case, it's probably just me looking in the mirror, and even then I don't agree. So I get into an argument with myself all the time. But with that being said, you know, there's a big difference between purposely causing division with statements like that and just expressing your frustration at the situation. Senator McQuaid, I hope you apologize. This is ridiculous. Don't say stuff like that.
She won't.
I don't know.
I doubt it.
I doubt it, but we'll see. You know, I think the public should hold her accountable, and that's something that I'm hoping we'll see. You know, it's pretty sad. I don't think, you know, I know people that live in her district. I don't think that, and you know, they probably voted for her, which is fine. And I'm still friends with them. I don't really care how they vote. At the end of the day, how you vote is how you represent yourself, not how you need to, you know, make friends. Your friends don't have to vote like you. It's not required. But unfortunately, in this country, it seems to be headed that way. But I would hope even those people understand that what she just said was implying someone like myself who is their friend. You know, we have those disagreements, but that she just implied that your friend is a predator, and that's not okay.
No, it's not.
And that's not good. So,
well said, Bill.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So let's move on to another subject, another goofball.
You sure you want to talk about this next guy?
Well, always we got to talk about him because you know what? Unfortunately, he's making national news and making really poor decisions nationally, and unfortunately, I have to work with this guy. And we have to find a solution because our budget is in a disaster. And we've passed one bill this year. One bill that's been signed by the governor, one bill that's made it to his desk. You know how many bills we managed to get by this time of the year last biennium?
I have no idea.
There's 20 or 30 bills that were signed by him.
Only one this year?
And there's one. We have one bill from his office. And our deadline is next Friday. So, wow. we're coming to deadlines, and we're running out of time. We're running out of time fast.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm going to play this this joker here. Ready?
Let's listen to Governor Walz talking about how he enjoys destroying the value of Minnesota workers.
On my phone, I don't know, some of you know this on the iPhone, they've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping. So, and if you own one, we're not blaming you. You can take dental floss and pull the Tesla thing off, and take out, just telling you. On my phone,
he is so funny.
Oh man. So let's talk about this first of all, I don't take that as a joke. It's not funny. He's literally talking about stock markets and companies crashing. Like,
yeah, okay, he thinks he's funny.
But what's funny, the thing is the way he just said it, that wasn't a joke, right? Like how he's saying it, he is celebrating the fall of a company named Tesla.
Yeah, he is.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if you agree with Elon Musk's political decisions or not, right? At the end of the day, he's another person. He's got a family, and he's trying his best to do the things that he's been tasked with. President Trump didn't just pick him because he just was best friends with him. He picked him as a person because Elon Musk has made decisions to have one of the most successful American-made companies in the world. And it's not even close. Like the reality is it's not even close. They are the largest American-made company in the world. And it is what it is.
It's incredible. Actually.
And so to celebrate them losing their stock value and talk about it on a national stage is ridiculous. You're now celebrating the dropping or the failure or whatever of an American-made company. And he's said, Governor Walz has said that he's contemplating running for president in 2028.
Go ahead.
Well, you're going to run for president and you're celebrating the failure of an American company. How does that make all the employees feel? How does that make all the people that have relied on that stock for their retirement plans? Oh, let's talk about that for a second. Minnesota State Retirement Fund for public workers and state workers. My retirement fund for the Senate. He's the chair. Governor Walz is the chair of the people who decide how we invest our money. He chose to invest our money in Tesla stock.
Tesla, yeah.
And now he's celebrating that our retirement funds are going down?
That's ridiculous.
Now, I'm not even close to retirement age, right? At the end of the day, I'm only 35. I've got a long ways to go. But to celebrate losses on our public dollars, the state of Minnesota is invested in Tesla stock. And he's celebrating it failing. You want to talk about socialism, communism, things like that? That right there, that is failing.
Oh, 100%. Socialism, you bet.
And I hate throwing those words around because socialism and fascism and communism, they're just a spectrum. People have a hard time actually defining what they mean. They just hear them and they're hot button words and they don't actually know what they mean. And I would love to sit down and talk to anybody that uses those words and understanding what they actually mean. And so that way they can understand whether they truly are fascist or communist or whatever. The reality of the situation is it's a spectrum of political class. It has nothing to do with the words, the hot button words that people are using. Socialist is one step less to the left of communism. So communism's far left. Fascism's actually on the left. People think that it's a right-minded idea. It's not. It's not a right issue. It's not a conservative issue. Nope. Fascism is far from that. Fascism falls in over there by communism and socialism on the spectrum of. But
they like to call Republicans fascists, and it's.
They do. They don't understand the word. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
Communism is when the government owns everything and gives you something, and you work. You have to do the jobs. So the government owns everything, and you have to do the job, and you get paid whatever the government thinks you're worth. That's what communism is. You get a universal a universal check, a universal paycheck, universal health care, that those fancy words that you hear coming from the state and from the federal level of the Democrats. They talk about, you should just have a universal income. Oh, so you're a communist, because that's what that is. Mm-hmm. Now, a fascist is a little bit different. Okay, fascism means that the government owns the means of production and you own everything else. Now, our government doesn't own the means of production. Nope, we don't. In fact, all the private companies are still in charge. Any conservative Republican is not a fascist. We don't support the idea of the government buying every means of production and owning it and telling you how to use it. It's not interesting. It's not at all what we're at. So please understand that the meaning of fascism is a lot different than what you're claiming. Now, dictatorship, that could be a different word. I still don't think that we have a dictatorship here in this country because we have legislators, we have judicial branch, we have a president, we have governors, we have a large number of elected officials, not a dictator. So
co-equal branches of government, right?
Yep. And, sometimes we forget about that because co-equal is very important. I've been hearing a lot on the federal level about how the judges are getting overruled by an executive order. Well, I would argue that here in Minnesota, we just watched the judicial branch tell the legislative branch what to do. We got told that we have to have 68 members in the House vote for a bill in order for it to be legal. That's pretty interesting because I don't think that's the case. It says a majority, pretty straightforward in the Constitution. But again, the judicial branch is overreaching, and that's what it does. And then you have, of course, it's their job to interpret the laws. So I'm not going to knock them because that's their job. They are supposed to interpret things. And they are supposed to then delve out what the decision is on those interpretations. Then you have the executive branch, who's actually supposed to be the enforcement side of the law, not the place where you write the laws, where Governor Walz sends his commissioners to our committees and tells us this is the bills we're going to pass this year. That's not how it's supposed to work. We as legislators are supposed to decide those things, not the executive branch. But yet here we are, dealing with that. And
then he signs it into law, right?
And then he signs it into law. That's the whole point, right? He gets to double check and make sure that our work was good work. That's his job. But the rest of it is not. So when we start talking about equal branches of government, we need to actually get back to what equal branches of government means. And people need to understand it. So, with that, we were talking about fascism. We were talking about how we probably don't actually have a fascist in this country. Let's show. Governor Walz decided that after that little show that he would bring a new town hall to the state of Minnesota. So he was in Rochester yesterday, I believe. And this is a coin that was handed, a wooden coin that was handed out at his town hall. And he wants to talk about being, working for Minnesota, working for the people of the United States. He wants to have the highest office in the land. And this is what he's handing out. Matt, why don't you read that for us?
Plant flowers, berry, fascists, and it says 8647.
Hey, Matt, so I know both of us worked in the restaurant industry a whole bunch of times. Mm-hmm. What does the number 86 mean?
Well, when you're out of something, take it out, get it off the menu. Let's say you run out of steaks one night, 86 it for the night, right?
Right. So when I hear the word 86, I think take it out.
Yep.
Get rid of it. That's what I hear. So when we see the number 86 next to number 47, what do we think they're implying?
And it says to bury fascists, too.
Yeah, and it does say bury fascists. Yeah. And they constantly call Donald Trump a fascist. And this is coming from our governor, the governor of Minnesota, who represents all of the people of Minnesota. And I believe 1.2 million people in the state of Minnesota voted for a Republican this last cycle. And only 1.4 voted for a Democrat. So we are pretty close down the middle.
I agree.
So what is he saying? Is he saying that he wants to get rid of fascists, which I described already for you? Or is he saying he wants to get rid of President Trump, 8647? President Trump is number 45 and number 47 for our presidents of the United States. Therefore, I believe he's implying that he wants you to get rid of, to axe
to remove, to take out, to take off the menu.
Take off the menu, President number 47. When we talk about inciting violence, the first thing I think is that's right there. That right there is telling people to go take out number 47.
Well, they've already tried twice.
And they have, but who's to say they won't try again?
Exactly.
So I'm hoping that the FBI, I'm hoping that the Secret Service are taking this seriously, because this is a pretty serious issue. This is a pretty serious problem. Not only is our governor now celebrating the failures of Tesla stock and the fact that we are all, as Minnesotans, losing our investments and losing our future, because, of course, retirement's going to cost more and more as we get older here. And as we go along, because our federal government continues to raise the burden. We now have a governor who's threatening and asking for the removal of our current sitting president. Our governor is on a runaway train here, and he needs to slow down. It'd be nice if he could come back to the table and learn how to work bipartisanly. I don't think he has it in him. I think he's got this idea, this grandeur going on with him. He tasted the big stage and he wants more of it. You know, I don't like to admit this, but once upon a time, I was an independent. I didn't think too much about politics. I didn't like either party. I thought they were both terrible, and I still have questions about both parties. I chose the Republican Party because it is the better party. It seems to have more people that are more interested about the locals, the people, the small people, the people that can't do anything else other than work every day. And now I'm over here like, wow, no wonder I picked this party.
Oh, yeah.
I never thought that the Democrat farmer and labor party would turn this way. I just didn't think it would get this way. And yet here we are.
Well, it's a libertarian in you, right?
And that's true, right? Like I'm a really big liberty guy. I prefer freedom. I prefer government leaving me alone.
Get out of the way. Yes.
It's not the government's job to tell me how to live my life. I need the government for specific things. There are things that the government's needed for. That's where the liberty streak ends. Is there are things that are necessary. Some libertarians would argue with me that I'm absolutely insane for saying this, but roads cost money. Roads keep our community together, and community building is okay. Sewer and water, those are hard to provide for yourself, especially because I don't think everybody wants to drill 200 and some feet into the ground to find themselves a well. So we'll share a common well. That's something that's important. Fire and rescue, those things. Not everybody's skilled enough to fire and rescue themselves. So we need those wonderful individuals, those hardworking public safety.
Fire trucks are expensive.
Yep. Those hardworking public safety individuals. Throw out the multiple thanks to all of those wonderful people. And, those are the things the government needs to provide. After that, I don't need them to provide all the things. I mean, the education's in there too. Let's throw that in there. Education's hard. We're homeschooling, so you can do education yourself. It's just really hard. It is 100%. My wife is a saint.
I give her credit.
Right, my wife's a saint. She does really hard work. I couldn't do this without her. Everybody talks about how it's cool to be the senator or cool to do this or that. The funny comments that I heard last night, because Senator Wiesenberg's wife and mine, they've become good friends, and so they were sitting there talking about like this event that we were having, right? So the event, the fundraiser. My wife, Cassie, she texted Jenny and she goes, "What do I have to wear to this?" Like it's every time there's an event that we have to go to, Cassie's always worried about clothes. What do I got to wear? Is this going to be formal? Is this informal? Is this I can go as the stay-at-home mom that I am most of the time, or how do I have to dress?
You should buy a hat that's made out of beaver.
Well, hey, there was a coonskin cap. It was not a beaver skin cap, but there was a coonskin cap at the event last night for the trappers, right? So there was a lot of trappers there. It was really cool, talking to them and listening to them, and they were giving Nate a really hard time about maybe a little more warning next time. We could actually have more beaver and then maybe some other things there as well. So
Sure.
kind of funny. Nate likes to talk about all the weird stuff he eats. So one of these days, I'm sure he'll just have a smorgasbord.
I can't wait to meet him.
Yeah,
like an interesting guy.
He's a fun guy to chat with. So yeah, you'll have to come meet him, or he'll have to come here. Which sounds like
get him on the show, right?
Sounds like he might be trying. We talked about that last night, so we may have him as a guest here soon enough. Session makes it tough because he wants to see his family, and because he lives in Little Falls, he has to, for 4 days a week. He basically lives in St. Paul, and so when you live in St. Paul for 4 days and you only get to see your kids for 3, I can understand why he doesn't want to try and drive down here on a Sunday. Sure. I get it.
Well, you can Zoom them in too. Right?
Well, and there's a possibility of that happening as well. So, we'll throw that out there.
Get hooked up, yeah.
I would be remiss if here we're getting closer to the end of the show since we don't have house updates from Drew. So we're coming to an end. We'll get his perspective on what it looks like being tied when he gets back. But the reality of the situation here is, don't forget to like, share, and also email us any questions that you might have, or you can message me, you can message Matt, however you want to get us the questions to answer. Because today was actually good. I was really glad that I got a couple of questions that I could answer for constituents, and it makes it more interesting. I don't just talk about whatever I want to talk about. I get to talk about what the people want to know.
Let me see if I can get this up here.
Yeah, let's get it up there.
Whoa.
Oh, okay. Hang on. That exploded up on us a little bit.
That's definitely... Probably should have this queued up ahead of time, right?
Probably, but that's okay. Us. So we'll get it on there. But so I'll just read it off. It's MinnesotaLibertyNetwork at gmail.com.
Pretty simple.
You can also find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube, and you can find us on Rumble. So feel free to go on that source of things, and you can reach out to us. You can always comment on Minnesota Liberty Network Facebook posts, and we'll get your questions.
Yeah, please
answered.
do. Yeah, if you don't want to send the email, just go ahead and drop us a note. Drop us a message on Facebook
and without our followers, without our listeners, we won't, we'll just keep doing it, right? We'll keep showing, we'll just keep doing our show, but it's actually way more interesting, and then you get to answer more of your questions.
I kind of missed Drew today.
Yeah, I think I fired up pretty good, though, for me. I was a lot more fiery than I normally am, so.
Awesome.
Well, I appreciate you, Matt. Thanks for doing all the work.
Bet.
And I look forward to seeing you guys in a couple weeks.
All righty.